I'm Lena Wells. I'm 28 now, but this story really started the winter I turned 12, when I learned what hunger tastes like and what it feels like when someone you trust decides you're not worth feeding. I grew up in a dying little town in southeast Ohio, the kind with one gas station, two churches, and three family feuds that never quite went cold. My mother died of an overdose when I was 6. After that, the state handed me off to her sister, my Aunt Brenda, who took me in for the foster check and made it clear every damn day that she hadn't asked for me. We lived in a sagging 2-bedroom house that always smelled like stale perfume and burned bacon. Brenda had 3 priorities in life: scratch-offs, sleeping in, and blaming everyone else for her misfortunes. I was just the unpaid help. Except I wasn't allowed to touch the food. Not unless it was leftovers she didn't want or stuff about to expire. She kept the pantry locked with a padlock. Literally. I remember staring at it for hours some nights, stomach cramping, while she watched TV 2 rooms away like I didn't exist. If I hadn't had Grandpa Frank, I probably would have disappeared into that house like wallpaper. Frank wasn't really my grandpa by blood. He was my mom's stepdad. But he was the only adult who ever really saw me. He ran a small diner called Frank's Place down on Maple Street. It wasn't fancy. Just eggs, grits, and coffee in chipped mugs, but it was always full of chatter and warmth. He'd let me come by after school, sit at the corner booth with a book, and sneak me grilled cheese when Brenda forgot to make dinner again. It was our quiet deal. One night, mid-January, the snow was coming down thick. Brenda got home late and saw I'd eaten one of the muffins she left on the counter, something she'd baked to bring to her church group. She flipped. I tried to explain I hadn't eaten since breakfast, but she didn't care. She dragged me out the front door in my pajamas, tossed my coat after me, and locked it behind her. I sat on the front steps for maybe an hour, shivering, teeth chattering so hard I thought they'd crack. Then a pair of headlights cut through the snow. Grandpa Frank. He didn't ask any questions, just threw his coat over my shoulders and said, "Let's get you warm, kiddo." I still remember the way the vinyl seats in his truck burned through the cold. He drove us straight to the diner, fired up the griddle, and made me pancakes shaped like smiley faces. Then he poured us both cocoa and sat across from me, elbows on the table, eyes shining with something I didn't understand yet. He said, "I've been thinking, Lena, about what happens to this place after I'm gone." I didn't want to hear that. He'd always been strong, barrel-chested, voice like a radio host. "I want you to have it," he said. "The diner, everything. You understand what this place means." I nodded, but I was 12. I didn't really get it. He reached across the table and squeezed my hand. "Don't let them take it from you. Especially not Brenda. Promise me." And I did. I promised him right there, with syrup on my shirt and snow melting in my shoes. The years that followed weren't easy. I aged out of Brenda's house the second I turned 18 and couch-surfed through college while working double shifts. Grandpa helped when he could, but he was slowing down. A few years ago, the diner went from 6 days a week to 4. Then he started forgetting things. Burning toast, mixing up the cash register. Early onset dementia, they said. I moved back to town that summer, took over the cooking, the books, the whole damn shop. We never talked about that night again, but I never forgot. He passed quietly in hospice last fall. I was holding his hand. A week later, the will was read. He left everything. The land, the building, the accounts, to me. Not a cent to Brenda or her grown kids. The next day, Brenda showed up at the diner with 2 strangers in suits and the fakest smile I've ever seen. That was when the real war began. She walked in like she owned the place. Hair freshly curled, blouse brighter than anything I'd seen her wear in years, and that forced smile stretched tight like saran wrap over spoiled meat. 2 guys in tailored suits flanked her like bookends, shiny briefcases in hand. I was behind the counter refilling salt shakers when she called out, "Lena, got a minute for family?" Every nerve in my body went rigid. I wiped my hands on a towel, stepped out from behind the counter. "Can it wait until after breakfast rush?" She tilted her head, that same fake cozy tone she used to use on social workers. "It's important, sweetheart. Won't take long. I nodded, more out of habit than agreement, and led them to the booth in the back. The same booth Grandpa used to call the corner office. Sitting there now felt wrong, like letting termites sit on your porch with power tools. Brenda slid in like she was settling into a throne. "This is Mr. Kelly and Mr. Diaz," she said, gesturing to the suits. "They help families like ours work things out peacefully." I blinked. "There's something we're working out?" Her smile didn't move. "You know, Frank wanted all of us taken care of. He just didn't have the time to update things properly." My throat tightened. The will was updated last year. He was already declining. Brenda's eyes were soft now, manipulative. "You know that. He didn't understand what he was doing." "I was the one who sat with him every day," I said, voice sharper than I intended. "He knew exactly what he wanted." Mr. Kelly leaned forward, folding his hands on the table like we were in a church meeting. "This isn't about fighting. It's about legacy. You've got a lot on your plate with this place, Miss Wells. The tax obligations alone—" "Let's not overwhelm her," Brenda interrupted, turning to me. "Honey, the responsible thing is to put the diner in a family trust. I'll manage the finances. You can keep running it, just without all the pressure." I stared at her. This was the woman who let me go hungry for years, who locked the pantry with a damn padlock, and now she wanted to manage what my grandfather bled his whole life building? My chest felt tight, but my voice came out even. "I'm not signing anything. Not today, not ever." Brenda's smile cracked at the edges. "Don't be hasty, Lena. This is bigger than you." "You're right," I said. "It's bigger than me. It's about him, and this—" I tapped the tabletop. "Was his life. You weren't there when his hands started shaking so bad he couldn't tie his apron. You weren't the one closing up at 2 a.m. while he sat in the back, trying to remember what day it was." She opened her mouth, then shut it again. Mr. Diaz shifted in his seat. "We understand emotions are high, but let's think practically. Miss Carter—" "It's Wells," I cut in. "I legally changed it when I was 17. You know that." Something flickered in Brenda's eyes then, like she just remembered I wasn't 12 anymore. "Look," I continued, voice lower now. "I know you think you're owed something. I get it. But Grandpa made his choice, and I'm not undoing it so you can cash it in." The corner of her mouth twitched. "You always thought you were better than us." "No," I said. I hoped I wasn't. Brenda shoved herself out of the booth, knocking her untouched coffee across the table. Mr. Kelly muttered an apology, trying to mop it up with cocktail napkins. "This isn't over," she hissed, grabbing her purse. "You think that paper means anything? I raised you." My hands curled into fists at my sides. "You cash checks for me, that's not the same thing." She stormed out, heels clacking like nails in a coffin lid. The suits followed, quieter now, no more pitch to sell. I stood there, heart pounding, watching them walk past Grandpa's old framed photo by the register. Him grinning in his grease-stained apron, arm around a younger me with syrup on my chin. For the rest of the morning, I moved like I was underwater, burned the eggs twice. Forgot to charge someone for their BLT. Every time the bell above the door rang, my shoulders flinched. Around 2 p.m., I finally locked the front door and pulled the shades. I sat in the same booth, cold coffee in front of me, and just stared at the empty seat where she'd sat. It wasn't just that she wanted the diner. It was the way she said, "I raised you," like it was a favor, like it gave her ownership. My phone buzzed with a text from my cousin Mandy, Brenda's daughter. Just 4 words. "What did you do?" By dinner, Facebook was flooded. Vague posts, passive-aggressive Bible quotes. One of Brenda's friends posted something about when a child forgets who fed them. I almost laughed. But the next post wasn't funny. It was a photo. The front of the diner. My name tagged. Captioned, "Some people forget who built their future." That was when I realized this wasn't just hurt feelings. This was a campaign. I wasn't just standing up for the diner. I was stepping into a war I never asked for, but sure as hell wasn't backing down from. The invitation came in a cheery group text, like nothing had happened. Family dinner, Sunday at 6. Brenda's bringing her famous lasagna. Let's reconnect. I stared at my phone like it had grown teeth. Mandy had sent it. Or more likely, Brenda told her to. My name was looped in with 5 other cousins I hadn't heard from in months. Some who hadn't even shown up to Grandpa's funeral, but suddenly cared enough to gather around a casserole dish now that there was a property involved. I almost didn't reply. I almost deleted the message and moved on. But something about the tone, too friendly, too together, itched at me. Brenda didn't do reconciliation. She did control. So I typed back, "Sure, I'll be there." I didn't tell anyone, not even George, who had started dropping by the diner more often, claiming to check the fryer, but really just keeping an eye on me. I didn't want him trying to talk me out of it. I had to see for myself what they were planning. Sunday came, gray and damp. One of those spring days where the trees bloom but the air still bites. I wore jeans, a sweater, and my diner work shoes, because I wanted to feel grounded. No pretending tonight. Brenda's house hadn't changed much. Same wind chimes, same cracked porch light, same half-dead flower pots. But when I stepped inside, it was like walking into a stage set. The table was set with cloth napkins. Brenda wore lipstick. There were name cards. She kissed my cheek like nothing had ever passed between us. "You look tired, sweetheart. You been working too hard?" I didn't answer, just nodded and sat down. The rest of the family filed in, some with hugs, some with weird, lingering glances, like they'd been coached. Lasagna came out steaming. Wine was poured. Small talk circled, how spring allergies were worse this year, how the price of eggs was outrageous. I sat quietly, fork in hand, waiting. It happened about halfway through dinner. Brenda tapped her glass with her spoon, the classic, "May I have your attention" move. Then she stood, hands folded, voice syrupy. "I just want to thank y'all for coming. It means so much. Frank believed in family, and I know we've had tensions lately, but I think tonight's a turning point." She turned to me then, smile perfectly practiced. "Lena, I know things have been hard for you, and I've been thinking a lot about what's fair, about legacy. So I spoke with some people who specialize in these kinds of situations." Here we go. From the sideboard, Mandy brought over a thick folder and laid it next to my plate. "We've put together a simple agreement," Brenda continued. "Nothing complicated. You'd still run the diner, of course, but the assets would be split among the family. That's what Frank would have wanted, don't you think?" I didn't look at the folder. I looked at Brenda. Her eyes glittered like cut glass. "You're ambushing me at dinner?" "It's not an ambush," she said sweetly. "It's a conversation, surrounded by love." The cousins nodded in unison. It was surreal, like I'd wandered into a cult meeting wearing the wrong shoes. "What happens if I say no?" I asked. She tilted her head. "Why would you say no? We're just asking you to share." "No," I said again, firmer. The room shifted. The air thickened. "Well," Brenda said, still smiling but colder now, "we do have legal options. There's always the question of undue influence. Frank wasn't exactly lucid near the end." I laughed, out loud. "You didn't visit him once in the last 6 months?" Her face twitched, but she recovered quickly. "I didn't want to upset him." "You mean you didn't want to drive 3 miles without a check waiting on the other end?" That's when the lasagna facade cracked. "You ungrateful little brat," she snapped. "He raised you with my money. He fed me with pancakes when you were too drunk to leave your room." Silence. You could hear the whir of the ceiling fan and the soft plink of someone's fork dropping. I stood, heart hammering, palms sweaty. "I know what this is. This isn't about family or fairness. It's about power. You controlled every room you were in for 20 years, Brenda. But you don't control this." Mandy reached for the folder. "Lena, just read it." "No." I turned and walked out, head high, ears burning. Outside, the wind had picked up. I walked down the driveway without looking back, and for the first time in weeks, I felt clear. Let them plot. Let them threaten. I knew now this wasn't just some petty inheritance grab. This was about reclaiming something they thought they'd stolen for good. My voice. But I had more than that. I had receipts. I didn't sleep that night. I laid in bed, eyes open, listening to the ticking of the ceiling fan and the quiet hum of the fridge down the hall. My body was still at the dinner table, still tasting lasagna and betrayal. I kept hearing Brenda's voice over and over. He wasn't lucid near the end. Like she hadn't shown up just once in Grandpa's final months. Like she had any idea who he was during that time. Like I hadn't sat there and watched him fight to remember his own birthday, but still recall, with perfect clarity, the name of every single supplier he ever dealt with. By morning, I knew what I had to do. The key was still taped behind the photo frame in the diner's office. An old, faded shot of Grandpa standing in front of the griddle with me perched on a milk crate beside him, proudly holding a spatula. He used to joke, "You were flipping eggs before you knew how to spell your name." I pulled the frame down, peeled the yellowed masking tape from the back, and took the small silver key in my hand. The safe was exactly where he said it would be, hidden behind the spice rack, behind a false panel in the pantry. I'd seen him open it only once when I was maybe 16 after some kid from the high school tried to break into the till one night. He looked at me dead serious and said, "If anything ever happens and people come sniffing around with hungry eyes, this is where the truth lives." And there it was, a beat-up brown leather journal, rubber-banded shut, and a manila folder labeled in Grandpa's shaky handwriting. "Lena, only if they push." I sat cross-legged on the office floor and opened the journal first. My hands shook as I flipped through the pages. He'd written everything. Every loan Brenda had begged for. Every cash withdrawal. Every check he wrote to cover overdrafts. Medical bills that never existed. Car repairs that mysteriously matched the cost of a cruise. He even kept screenshots, printed out of her social media posts. Like he knew. And then I found the letter. One page, folded 3 times, addressed to me. "Lena, if you're reading this, I guess it means Brenda is doing what Brenda always does. I'm sorry, sweetheart. I should have said these things to your face, but some truths are easier left to ink. I watched you grow into someone I didn't dare dream I'd have in my life. Strong, kind, smart. But most of all, good. This diner is yours because you loved it without asking for anything in return. You fed people the way you never were fed. You gave care like no one gave you. That's what legacy is. It's not money, it's character. Stand firm. You know who you are. They don't get to take that from you." Frank. I broke down reading that. Not a dramatic movie sob. Just silent tears rolling down my face while I sat on the floor of a pantry surrounded by pickles and ketchup. It wasn't even about Brenda anymore. It was about finally hearing the one thing I'd needed my whole life. You were never crazy. You were never wrong for wanting more. That afternoon, I called Samantha. She was a friend of George's, a sharp estate attorney who worked out of a nearby city. We met at the diner after close. She listened without interrupting as I laid everything out. The journal, the letter, the Facebook harassment, the trap dinner. I showed her the photos I'd taken of Brenda's folder before I left the table. Her eyes narrowed at the agreement. "Pretty ballsy," she muttered. "This thing's full of holes. It's not even notarized." Then she looked up. "You ready to stop being polite about this?" I nodded. "Yeah, I'm done letting them talk to me like I owe them anything." She smiled. "Good. Let's start by securing the business." By the end of the week, we'd filed for formal probate protection, locked down the accounts, and flagged Brenda's attempts to contact my vendors. Samantha also drafted a letter warning of potential harassment charges if the intimidation continued. I printed a copy and taped it behind the counter at the diner, right next to the "Employees must wash hands" sign. I knew Brenda would come by eventually, just to snoop, and she did. 2 days later, she waltzed in like it was still 1998, and she was there to yell about missing hash browns. She walked up to the counter and blinked when she saw the laminated letter. "You're threatening me with a lawyer now?" I didn't even look up from the register. "No, Brenda. I'm informing you." Her voice got low. "Frank would be ashamed of you." I looked her dead in the eye and said quietly, "He wrote me a letter. You want to read it?" She stared at me for a second, and I watched something change in her. Not regret, not apology. Just the slow realization that she'd lost, that I wasn't 12, that I wasn't scared anymore. She turned and walked out without another word. It didn't end there, of course. People like Brenda never go quietly. She tried one last Hail Mary, filed an objection with the county court claiming I manipulated Grandpa in his final months. But the journal, the notarized will, and that damn letter buried that claim like a snow shovel in spring. The judge dismissed it in 15 minutes. I walked out of that courtroom with my head high, a copy of the ruling in one hand and Samantha's coffee in the other. We'd done it, but I knew this wasn't the end. Because now, I had to decide what to do with the thing I'd fought so hard to protect. It took me a while to walk back into the diner like it was mine. Not just something I was defending, but something I had earned the right to grow. After the court dismissed Brenda's claim, she went quiet, at least in public. But in a small town like ours, silence can be just as loud. Word got out fast, about the will, about the letter, about how she tried to ambush me over lasagna. Her church friends stopped tagging her in their brunch photos. People whispered when she walked into the grocery store. She'd show up to town events with forced smiles, but everyone knew. That kind of shame doesn't leave a person untouched. I didn't gloat. I didn't need to. Her absence was loud enough. I focused on the diner. I finally gave it the care Grandpa always dreamed of, but never had the resources to pull off. Refinished the floors, repainted the walls a soft blue, brought back the Friday night pot roast special. I even hung his letter, framed behind the counter, right above the coffee machine. Just his words, in his scratchy handwriting, staring back at me every morning. A quiet reminder of why I stayed, why I fought. George came by often. He never asked for anything, just dropped off fresh tomatoes from his garden or repaired a leaking faucet without being asked. One day, he showed up with a box of old photographs and receipts, stuff he'd found in his attic from when he and Grandpa first opened the diner. "You're the last one who gives a damn," he said simply, placing the box on the counter. "Might as well live here." And it kind of did. The diner became my home in the way Brenda's house never was. Then something happened I didn't see coming. Rachel, Brenda's oldest daughter, stopped by one afternoon. I hadn't seen her in years. She looked tired in that way people do when they've been trying to hold too many things together for too long. She asked if we could talk. I said yes, mostly because I didn't have it in me to carry any more weight than I already was. Turns out Brenda hadn't just been pressuring me. She'd taken out a loan under Rachel's name the year before. Rachel had just found out when the bank called about a delinquent payment on a small business line of credit she never opened. The business? Frank's place, listed at Brenda's address. My stomach dropped. Brenda had planned ahead. She thought she'd win the diner, and already tried to profit off it before I even knew it. Rachel was humiliated. She cried into her coffee and apologized, not just for what her mom did, but for standing by for so long. I believed her. We called Samantha that night. It didn't take long to build the case. Brenda had committed fraud, plain and simple. The paper trail was clear. Rachel pressed charges. I submitted a statement confirming the forged business registration. By summer, Brenda was facing felony charges. She ended up taking a plea deal. No prison, but 5 years probation, restitution payments, and mandatory financial ethics classes. Her name was printed in the local paper under the headline, "Woman charged with defrauding daughter and attempting to seize family business." It wasn't revenge that satisfied me. It was the fact that, for once, the truth was louder than her lies. 1 year after Grandpa's passing, we held a small celebration at the diner. Just a few locals, a chalkboard sign that read, "Frank's Place Turns 40." And a free slice of pie for anyone who had a story about the man himself. People came in all day, some with stories I'd never heard, about how he lent them cash when they couldn't pay rent, gave them jobs when no one else would, slipped extra hash browns on the plate when they looked tired. He never asked for recognition. He just gave. I think that's what legacy really means. It's not what you own or what you leave in a will. It's what you build with your bare hands and your full heart, and who you pass it on to when you're gone. If there's one thing I've learned, it's this. Sometimes the people who hurt you most will do it while smiling across the dinner table. But the person you become after surviving that, that's yours. No one gets to take that. And if you've ever been through something like this, family fighting over money, being made to feel small for standing your ground, I hope you know, you're not alone. And you're not wrong for wanting better. If this story hit a nerve or reminded you of something from your own life, I'd honestly love to hear it in the comments. Drop your thoughts below or just let me know you're out there. And if you want more stories like this, real, messy, human stuff, feel free to subscribe. I'm not going anywhere. Not now. Not ever.